Percent Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Matthew. Before we get into today's spotlight interview featuring WhaleShark, I just wanted to give a shout out to this month's sponsor, who's none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Connie Digital. Everyone listening to the podcast should be familiar with Connie. He's been a guest on here once before. And if you don't know him, he's a legend in the crypto art scene, and he's making waves now with his tokenized music. Just want to make sure that everyone checks out his website at danky.art. That's DANKY.art. And make sure that you sign up for his newsletter. And you can go to conniedigital.com/join to do that. That's CONNIEDIGITAL.com/join. That's it. Make sure you follow Connie Digital, and thank you again for supporting the show. So with that, let's begin today's episode. Okay, we're live. This is Matthew, and I'm back with another spotlight interview. Today, my guest is someone who's instantly recognizable in NFT land. He's going to be one of the biggest names in the history books. I'm fairly confident of this. I'm really excited to get a chance to speak with WhaleShark. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on, my friend. I've been a huge fan of you and Rizzle for a very long time. You guys were the first podcast I ever listened to when I entered the space. So this is really a huge honor for me.
No, the honor is mine, my friend. And to get started, I'd like to talk about how I think about you as this very dynamic individual who is at the same time a collector, an investor, and a serial entrepreneur. And I'm just wondering if that frame of viewing you as those three things largely, is that an accurate view of who WhaleShark is?
So I think the first thing, and once again, very appreciative of those kind comments. For me, I've been very lucky over the course of my life, to be extremely financially independent, as well as meet a lot of people along my journey, inside and outside of crypto, who taught me that, sometimes and all the time, that values do exceed profitability. We have a saying in Chinese, and this will be the first time I actually use Chinese on a podcast. But in Chinese, we say, 先做人才做生意, which basically means you need to be a person, or you need to be a good person before you can do good business. And that's really one of the core values that I really stick to, no matter whether I'm developing something in crypto land or NFT land, or doing something outside of that. As a collector, investor, and a serial entrepreneur, I think you have it straight on. You got the nail on the head. That's pretty much what I do as a profession. Again, inside and outside of crypto. One of the things that I would like to extend in the future is really leveraging the benefits of wearing those three hats, and really becoming someone that's really grounded in philanthropy. So that's a vision, but yeah, you have it nailed on the head. Definitely, I love to collect, I love to invest, and I love to create new things. It's my form of crypto art, right? Creating businesses, creating communities, creating value.
And one thing that I love to do in my pastime, I like to read biographies of just great businessmen, great personalities, great figures in history. One of the interesting things that I always find when I'm reading through these biographies of whether it's Washington or Hamilton or Rockefeller is the threads that carry on from their childhood into who they become as these historical legacy figures. When I think of being a collector, an investor, and an entrepreneur, underlying those titles usually is some combination of extreme passion and creativity. And I'm just curious if you kind of look back to when you were younger, what were you passionate about? In what instances do you think that you were creative potentially as a child in a way that kind of extends to who you are today?
That's an amazing and very deep question that I've never been asked before, Matthew. Well, if I look back on my childhood, I mean, I grew up in a regular, once again, a very regular middle class family. The only thing that I did see as I grew up was, my dad worked in a lot of large multinational companies, and I saw him churning out 16, 18-hour days, which really taught me the value of hard work. Now, given that he really worked in a very few number of companies and was always really a corporate guy, he always encouraged me to, start my own business, do my own things, look for opportunities. Papa WhaleShark was very much an entrepreneur, although he had to grind it out so that the family could live to a standard that he wanted us to. Um, as a young child, I loved collecting things, right? I think the first instance of me remembering something that I collected were actually Premier League stickers. So, younger, I loved watching football or soccer for the US. We'd always have these sticker collector books, and I just loved collecting them and filling in all the blanks. Moving forward after that, I started collecting Dragon Ball Z cards, which were very popular back in the day. And, they had these vending machines where you could put in, 50 cents to $1, turn the knob, and a Dragon Ball Z card would come out. And if you were lucky, you got a shiny. If not, you get a double shiny. But really, I think it started with collecting what I loved, and then came the economics. So I was the guy who was carrying an album full of cards to school, got them confiscated a couple of times as well, but was in school trying to sell my cards, right?
Yes, yes.
From Dragon Ball Z that advanced to Magic the Gathering. Shame on me, but as a kid, once again, I was an athlete. Did track and field, was actually also
What
a fencer.
events?
I actually did the long jump. So I did the long jump. Did a bit of running, but mainly the long jump. But I would skip those practices to actually go to there was those mom and pop comic card book stores, right? Back in the day, getting less and less now. But sometimes I skip practice on a Saturday, go down there and trade cards and collect more. As I look back and I connect the dots and the threads, I think I saw the benefits and the fallbacks towards becoming a corporate guy, and I was a corporate guy for about 12 years before I started my own journey. Always wanted to do something new and by myself, and at the same time, just being a collector and a trader, and an investor. This is really, my presence and my activity in the space is really a culmination of all those things that I did in childhood, but just taken to a much larger stage.
Mm. And we share a couple common threads there. First of all, track and field. I was also an athlete and a runner when I was younger, 400 and 800 meter.
Very cool.
And also the same thing with collecting. Although I did Magic the Gathering cards as well, but unfortunately no one within my circles throughout my childhood or high school had really played or had any interest in Magic the Gathering. But when I was younger, I also collected sports cards, mainly baseball, basketball, and football. And I too would take my collection or part of my collection to school and either trade folks or try to sell some cards. So I have that.
It's the middle school hustle, boy, right?
Hell yeah, hell yeah. But you touched on how, and I don't think a lot of people kind of put the entrepreneurial or business side of things. I don't think they often associate that with creativity. But I like to think of like having these extra, okay, from collecting, what can I do with these cards to generate either interest or to get my friends excited or to earn some money. I feel like those questions or challenges that one poses oneself with and trying to find a solution or answer to them, I feel like I found that incredibly creative because there's no roadmap for people to follow. They're making things up as they go. And I'm wondering if you could kind of unpack, based on your experience selling things or creating businesses, if you could talk about the creativity involved in building out that side on the entrepreneurial and business side of things.
Absolutely. So I think everyone, again, to your point, I think everyone exercises their creativity in a different manner, right? There are those that are able to exercise their creativity with a pen or brush and paper.
Mhm.
There are others, while we don't have that artistic or artistic creativity, aesthetic based creativity, we do enjoy problem solving, right? Having been in and having managed many projects and companies prior to crypto, I think it's really after many years of experience and going through similar problems, the ability to draw parallels to how you solved one problem 5 years ago and apply not just the exact tactic, but more so the principle behind what one learned during those trials and tribulations to answer some of these new problems, and they might be slightly different, right? They might be slightly different, but again, being able to leverage those principles that you learned earlier on to solve problems, that's really where the strength of my creativity lies. The other point that I really do leverage a lot is also learning from other people. Very much, the project that we are currently working on, and it's doing extremely well, Whale. It wouldn't be what it is without some of the amazing things that were done by Connie Digital, Skinny, Hackatow, and Xcopy, right? The ability to look at a project and say, hey, this is what they got right. This is what could have been better. This is what we can actually do. And on that basis of analysis and looking at what was previously done and how it can be improved, as well as really looking at things that are going on in the greater space, and then connecting the dots to see how you can incorporate that within your project as well. That can really be deemed as creativity as well. So it's really creativity for me in terms of the construction of projects and the construction of communities or the construction of companies. Is really looking at the past and seeing what people have done before and how it can be improved, and at the same time really keeping an open mind in terms of what's going on in the space, integrating that all with the sole purpose of solving a solution, of solving a problem, right? So that's really the way that I look at creativity in business. Once again, I think you might see a couple of people who come out with that one stunner idea that really just breaks everybody's minds. But without that one stunner idea, just to be consistent, that's really the way that I exercise creativity in business.
I love that. And like, to put it in musical terms, it's almost like, especially if you're taking ideas and examples from people across time, not necessarily contemporaries, it's like jamming or riffing across time. You're taking and incorporating these different ideas, you're synthesizing it with what you're doing at your time, learning from the principles, their example, whatever it may be, their attitude even, and you're incorporating that into the own music you're making, so to speak, with whatever the current endeavor is. I just feel like it's really important to put what you're doing in particular in these creative terms, because I feel like too often, especially since when dealing with crypto, money is usually right at the forefront, just because it is at the forefront and it's baked in, right? We're utilizing this internet money for everything that we do. I feel like a lot of times people kind of get lost in the money, and they feel that people that are making money or are doing something with money are cold-hearted, or they lack this kind of like warmth. But what you're doing is a very, very creative pursuit. So I just really wanted to highlight that for folks.
Money is an outcome of doing something well. I think, when I was younger, I benefited from a lot of mentors, as I still do today. Every single one of these successful people have always told me that, money is just a way to count the score. Or money is just money, and money at the end of the day is not to be kept, but it's used to do things. It's a tool, right? Mm-hmm. While I know that the results of the price of whale, right, and just delving into that a tiny bit, going from 17 cents to $9, $10, and at the high point $14, might seem the main purpose of why we started this project. It really isn't. It's a reflection of the quality and of the structural designs that we made for the coin, and that core, and really that core vision has always been to allow anyone and everyone to become a whale through whale. and to really just advance the entire NFT space. So I think as long as you do the right thing, as long as you follow the right process, you're going to get the right results.
I totally support that. And to go back to the other part, not just learning from others, but the problem solving approach, which I also identify with. And I mean, me personally, someone having moved a lot when I was younger and gone through a lot of different experiences in the States and then moving abroad, living abroad, getting this exposure to different cultures and different ways of doing things. It just, for someone that is tuned into always kind of collecting different approaches, different ways to solve problems, I just feel like it's the most beneficial thing in the entire world. And it's not just useful to solve problems. It's great in terms of like developing interpersonal relationships and just being tuned in more as just a human being in the world. And I know that you're also someone that has a plethora of life experiences moving around and also being quite a cosmopolitan fellow yourself. So I'm just wondering if you could kind of go back in your life and talk about some of the places you may have lived or experienced and some of the defining experiences in those different places. I think that'd be a great way to color you in.
Matt, you're spot on. I mean, I think that the more that you see, the more you experience, whether those be failures or successes, it really changes your entire point of view and how you look at things, how you look at problems, how you deal with problems. So, once again, I think as advice to all of the listeners out there, try and do as much as you can, go to as many places as you can, learn as much as you can. And always keep an open mind because that's really going to help you with any single challenge that you meet in the future. Going to your question in terms of my background or my life experiences, if I look back over the past 37 years, so I am 37 this year, I've lived and worked in over 10 different countries. I don't think I'd be able to count the number of countries that I've visited. For me, I was born in the UK. So, I might not sound British, and the only thing British about me is my passport. But I was born in the UK. Really haven't been there much. I think the last time I was back in London was probably about 15 years ago. Spent a lot of my time growing up in the US, so mainly on the East Coast, so New York and Philly. And then after that, when I did start my professional life, worked in the United States, Japan for 3 years, Taiwan, Korea, China. And then after that, really had the chance to just travel all around the world, particularly in a lot of countries in Europe. So, just having that background and understanding the cultures of many different nations, it really helped me build up my repertoire of how to deal with different people, how to deal with different cultures, and really create a unique style of how to approach business. I could be in China, I could be in Japan, or I could be in Korea, and I'd probably be mistaken for being a nationality of any of those countries. Which is interesting for most people when they see it. Some of the life-defining moments, I would say, is probably the first time, and some of these life lessons are good, some of these life lessons are bad. Coming out of college, I really didn't understand the value of hard work. Simply because I was young and naive. But it was a real rude wake-up call when I first started out professionally. Was trying to raise a family, and at that point in time, was working for, I think my paycheck was about $1,800 a month, which in the U.S. really doesn't go that far. Lived on ramen and canned food for about a year, and then just really learned the value of hard work so that I could move forward and be able to get off ramen and processed food for that year. And I think that grounding in terms of understanding that hard work, it really is everything. It's the core foundation of everything. That was a very rude but good wake-up call for me. Then after that, I would say the second defining moment in my life was really understanding, you can work hard, but you really need to have work-life balance. So when I was in Japan and when I was in Taiwan, I had gotten to the point where I was working 18, 19 hours a day, sometimes just sleeping underneath my desk. Matthew, and I hope you're getting what you're getting, because you're getting what you wanted, because I've never spoken about these details of my life before.
I love this.
So literally, I would say that there were times where I had a pillow and I had a blanket underneath my desk, and it would be sometimes working till 2 a.m. in the morning, rolling up underneath my desk for 4 to 5 hours, getting up and doing it again for a year or 2 years, right?
And that's still in that corporate capacity that you had been in for 12 years when you were in Taiwan. Yeah.
Yep, I was still in my corporate capacity. I was, I think I got into the point where I had finally, been able to make ends meet. From my experience in the U.S., where I was, eating, and I think you know this brand as well, Top Ramen, worst ramen in the world,
Terrible.
25 cents a pack.
Garbage ramen.
Dude, it was Top Ramen, Hungry Man frozen dinners.
Oh no.
and Campbell soup, my friend. That literally was my diet for 1 year. So Taiwan and Japan, it was really another wake up call to understand that you should work hard. But you really got to take care of yourself, because at that point in time, I just, my weight started ballooning, had a plethora of health issues, wasn't happy, was making some good money by then. But my psychological life and my physical life was a wreck. So really learning from that, understanding what is most important in life, and some people will say money, some people will say family. Some people will say accomplishment, but really, one of the understandings I got from that, it's really about health, right? Because if you don't have your health, you're not going to be able to be there for your family. You're not going to be able there to earn money. And really, you're not going to be able to do anything with achievement, because you're just too weak too physically weak to do anything. So I think that would be the second turning point in my life. And the last one would be, having been in corporate for 12 years, for anyone who is in corporate or has been in corporate, everyone knows that, sometimes, not everyone climbs up the ladder through hard work, right? I had my fair share of being backstabbed in the corporate world. I did pretty well. Reached up to, and I know that you chuckle down there because you've been in a Korean company before, right, Matt?
Oh yeah. No shortage of office politics in that setting.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I mean, no matter how hard you work for a company, and I'm sure there's some wonderful companies out there, but not every single company is going to take care of you. They're not going to, they're not going to create a culture that you enjoy. So really, I think that the third and final life lesson, and one of these lessons can also be taken from Steve Jobs' commencement speech at Stanford, is if you look yourself in the mirror for too many days in a row and you don't really know that you enjoy what you're doing, and you really don't like yourself, then you really got to change, right? So something's got to change. And that was the point actually where I decided, to ditch the corporate life, to start up a few companies. Didn't start up a few at once, started them one by one. But today, I love what I do. I love the companies that I've created. I'm working with artificial intelligence, working with traditional finance, working with investments in blockchain. And, right now, and for the foreseeable future, my main passion is the development of whale. So sorry, I apologize. That was relatively long, but those were actually my international experiences and the 3 life lessons that really pivoted the way that I look at things.
No, that's great. I'm just curious, when you left corporate and you did start your own ventures, I'm curious if you can go into detail on maybe one of those ventures and talk about like if it's still going, how you got it off the ground. I haven't heard anything about that. Only just like obviously the different fields, but I find that really really interesting, and I know there's probably other lessons to be gleaned from some of those experiences. If you care to talk.
So Matthew, I have never started a project and not ended it in a successful manner. What people don't understand is that, nothing is ever going to go as smoothly as they think. A lot of the times, projects fail is because, people just don't stick to it, or they don't have the energy or the resources to keep pursuing it. What I found in life, and this maybe only applies to myself, but I'm quite sure it applies to a broader audience, is that if you stick with it, if you have the grit to really just keep pushing even in the hardest times, sometimes success is like 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes away, a phone call away. The inflection point between failure and success is as thin as a hair. So to answer your first question, I have never run a project that does not exist and does not continue to exist in some successful manner today. I'm probably one of the largest things that I do is actually in artificial intelligence. So with a partner based in San Diego, what we do is we leverage artificial intelligence to be able to identify any single product in a grocery store. And sorry, this is really veering away from crypto,
Cool.
but interesting, right?
Mm.
The guy is working with brick and mortar stores while doing crypto at the same time. But essentially, what we do is if stores are very much non-automated today. So basically, if they want to make sure that the stores and the shelves are well set, many a times you still have someone walking around with a piece of paper and checking it off a list and saying, "Hey, I'm going to make sure that this Mars bar is in shelf number 10, position number 2, shelf number 3," right? What we're able to do with AI is, once again, we're able to create a solution where people are able to just take a photo of that shelf, and automatically behind we have AI algorithms which will understand, number one, what is this product, and number two, cross-referencing that with the plan to understand, hey, is this product in the right place, and this right place has been determined to optimize sales. Short of spieling who I am and where we are, we work with some of the major retailers throughout the world, really automating that store operation process. So yeah, that's what I do. That's what I do with the remaining amount of time outside of Whale.
That's super cool. As someone, when I was in high school, one of the part-time jobs that I had was working in a grocery store. I can appreciate the product that you're developing and how much time and just wasted effort that something like that saves. That's really interesting. So I just
Dude, I'm sure you remember getting that we call it a planogram, right? So getting that planogram and then I was like going to the shelf and checking it off one by one.
It was terrible. It was such a tedious process.
5 minutes per shelf when you can actually now get it done in under a minute, and it's just a photo, and it not only tells you exactly what's wrong, but it tells you exactly how to fix it, right? So those sort of things. I just really love where we are at this point in time, where you're leveraging crypto and blockchain technology, you're leveraging artificial intelligence. It's really a renaissance for technology, and I'm just so honored and grateful to be in this world at this point in time.
I think this is the perfect segue for us to kind of enter crypto and NFT land. One of the things that I was thinking about before we got on this call together was, with all the interactions that I've had with folks that are doing amazing things in the crypto and NFT space, is somehow these people all have like this really preternatural comfort with working in this like place that doesn't really exist, right? It's kind of all in our collective imaginations as crypto and NFT land, right? It's purely digital. It's all decentralized. People are all around the world. We very rarely are able to even be in the same room with any of these people. But there's just like this sense of purpose of working in this shared space. I know Andrew Steinwald is, I really love his definition for how he's kind of like framing this digital space that we're all kind of working and acting in as the metaverse, which is this virtual or digital place where we live, work, and play. And I really identify with that. And I feel like some of your life experiences that you just shared, living in 10 plus countries, traveling to many, many more, working across these very different businesses and industries, having this corporate background, but also obviously being able to have your wits about you, to venture out on your own. I feel like all of those experiences kind of open you up to being able to work in this purely digital virtual place that a lot of us are calling either NFT land or the metaverse.
Mm-hmm.
And our kind of meeting within this metaverse happened around like November, December 2019, maybe January 2020. And it happened because of crypto art and scent, essentially.
Correct.
One of the questions that I wanted to ask you is kind of if you could take us back in time. It wasn't that long ago. It feels like ages ago. But if you could take us back in time to like November, December 2019, when you just started to get onto the crypto art scene in super rare, if you could take us back there and just walk us through the next few months of your experience back then in crypto art and NFT land.
Absolutely, Matt. Once again, it might have been only 12 months ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
But dude, it feels like 12 years.
Seriously, crypto time.
Crypto time is definitely different from real time. And just before I answer your question, I fully agree, right? The growth of the metaverse is something that's inevitable. Once again, the world is so globalized. And while I'm a millennial, I do behave like a boomer sometimes. I do enjoy I do enjoy the handshake. I do enjoy the eye contact. But it's not possible, right? With the way that the world is and business is becoming so globalized, it's not possible, and it's honestly it's health wrecking to get on 6 flights a week. Trust me, I've been there and done that. The metaverse is inevitable. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So once again, huge kudos to you and the WIP team, as well as Andrew on really pushing that narrative, because I think it's going to be sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
When I first entered the crypto art space, honestly, the first thing I was looking for was for information, right? I think anybody who is looking to understand a sector or a place better is really looking for information. And that first step for me was not sent, but rather you deserve a drink. I remember being in Beijing. So I was in Beijing when I first really started delving into it. I had learned about crypto the day before. Had not slept the entire night because I was collecting artwork on crypto on super rare. Hopped on the flight to Beijing, got into Beijing and started looking for information. And really the first thing that cropped up was You Deserve a Drink. Binge listened to every single episode that you guys had out there over the course of a day. And really gave me a lot of insight into what was going on. After that, the second place of information that really appealed to me was because you and Rizzle were so tied to Scent. I hopped on Scent, right? Hopped on Scent, registered an account, did not post, so was a long-time lurker, first-time poster. But was just reading all of these posts and really understanding what was going on in NFT land. I read posts from yourself, from Rizzle, from Skeeny, from No Shot, from Connie, and was really just getting up to speed in terms of what was going on. So that's still, and it remains an amazing resource for people to learn about the space in a very friendly and very democratic environment. Was really thrilled to learn that Scent had this sort of incentivized mechanism where you could post, and once again, your post could be recognized by contributions for the community. Love it then, loved it still today. Still avidly posts on Scent as well. But then after that, from you guys, I moved on to CryptoVoxels. I think the first CryptoVoxel gallery that I saw was from Ophelia Fu. I collected a ton of her work when I first entered. I know she's a little bit more quiet in the space. Matthew would love to have you interview her one day.
Sure.
But she had her gallery up in CryptoVoxels, and I saw it, and it instantly could click one and one with me, because if digital art is worth something, and the way to digitalize art, the way to create provenance and scarcity for digital art is NFTs, you need to have a place to display those digital art. right? Because not everyone is going to have 10, 46-inch TVs in their house, or not everyone is going to have 20 murals. There has to be a way to do it through VR. And really back then, and I think still today, CryptoVoxels remains the number one choice for artists to create virtual-based galleries. So jump down that rabbit hole. And then after that, being in the Cent community, being in the CryptoVoxel community, being in the crypto art community, it was just another rabbit hole from there on. Met Jim McNellis. He dragged me down even further, and 12 months later, I'm invested in 52 projects with over 10,000 NFTs, the founder of the largest social token based on NFTs. It just made sense, Matt, right? I mean, when you take a look at it and you take a look at the digitalization of the world, the metaverse is a very large part of that. And if you can understand that really that's the next evolution of human interactions and socialization, all of it makes sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, absolutely. The VR component with the crypto art, that is what sealed it for me too. Obviously combined with the warmth and openness of the artists in the space and being able to get to know what they're doing and feel that passion, feel the real creative passion and watch the work in progresses take form and solidify into the end product that gets placed on the marketplace that people can scoop and then just own, right? I mean, it all works in such great harmony, I feel like. But I'm wondering if, and of course, like the people in the space, I am so I have to pinch myself with how lucky I feel that I am. And I'm sure you do the same thing. And being in this space at this time with just this, the amount of great people who are open and positive and so generous with their time and insights to collaborate with, to talk, to soundboard off of. There's literally no better creative place on earth. I mean, I like to think about this space as like the ideal startup, right? Where people, you have an idea, you can boom, put into action, find your collaborators, go and pursue it and see if it has legs. And this whole space is just that perfect incubator of talent and ideas and the tools that people have at their disposal to utilize in project. It's just every single day it continues to grow.
Dude, it's amazing. It's because, again, I think when you look at 99% of the people who are involved in NFT or NFT land, money is far down the priority list, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone just sees this revolution and this renaissance that they just want to be a part of. They want to contribute. They just want to make this place better. Right. And granted, while I wish for NFT land that sort of community spirit continues all the time. Right. It's really those people that make this place so special, and it's why you and I spend 16 to 18 hours a day glued to our computers, talking to people on Twitter, talking to people on Discord, right?
Yep.
It's amazing.
Absolutely. I'm wondering if we could go back a little bit, because I know there was a point in time where you were collecting, particularly on Super Rare, and then there was definitely a switch that was flicked, and then the vault kind of came up. I'm just wondering, like, I understand the progression. I can totally kind of like intuitively feel like what happened and what clicked. But I'm wondering if you could like walk us back on a more granular level into like when you were collecting, and then you're like, okay, this can form the basis of something bigger, obviously, which will kind of dovetail into our conversation that we can focus more on whale community, right?
Absolutely. So when I first entered into the greater NFT land, I had no idea that we were going to launch a fractional-based ownership of NFTs called the Vault and Whale. Dude, if I did have that intention, I think that number one, I'd be a total genius, which I'm not, I might have done things a tiny bit differently, right? But when I first entered the space, the first thing I collected was Yura Miran. I think in one single night, and this was the night before I traveled to Beijing. I collected 10 to 20 pieces of his artwork because it really spoke to me, right? I still collect him today because I just love the way that he integrates artificial intelligence again with all of the abstract designs that he has. Um, you know, art for me, coming into crypto art, was really about me realizing a aspirational dream that I've had for many years, which was to collect art. The traditional art environment was way too snobbish, and the learning and the supposed learning curve was way too high. For me to want to enter that space. But when I went into crypto art, hey, I can collect what I love, and I can collect it anonymously, right? So really, that was the primary driver behind the collecting of art. The collecting of crypto voxel parcels, once again, I fell in love with the whole concept of the metaverse, and still very much in love today. Huge holder of crypto voxels as well as the sandbox. And I just loved creating, right? So I loved the fact that, hey, now we have a metaverse, or a part of the metaverse, where I can display this crypto art. So, as I proceeded to go from project to project to project, I never collected for the vault, right? Because the idea of the vault didn't hit me till I think it was January or February of this year, right? And by then, I think we all know by January, I had already put together one of the largest collections of NFTs in the space. Um, you know, the journey of a collector is really, really lonely. um, you're collecting for yourself. You're collecting, and while you might be able to show people some of the things that you collected, it's not as collaborative as I would have liked it to be, right? Um, you know, to and once again, NFTs do form a very small part of my portfolio, and what I saw was that this amazing community with amazing people, we're building this entire industry with limited to no compensation. It was then that my social entrepreneur side of me really kicked in, and I was thinking, hey, how can I share that? How can I share that collection with everybody? It's the most epic collection. It's one of the most epic collections ever. You have this entire community of people who have contributed and who had grown this industry. Is it possible for me to, number one, make my journey as a collector less lonely, and then number two, really share this collection with the people who really built the industry? So that's really where the idea of Whale really kicked in. I guess the real turning point was at a point when we saw F, going up to, back then it was going up to 220, and then it crashed back down to like 100, and then you saw all the crypto artists saying, I've just lost 50% of my net worth. I've just, it's because a lot of people are subject to whale games, right? Nefarious whale games. And the third point was creating Whale and basing it on a stable currency. I could not only reward the people who are really growing the space, but at the same time, I could give them something that they could hold on to, and they would not have to worry about it crashing to 1/3 of the value, right? So that really was the turning point. And I guess the last point is before launch. Again, we were thinking about market making at a very low price, once again to allow that whale to be distributed. But conversing with the community, had great advice. Said, what's the point in market making? Why don't we just give it all away for free, right? So that really also, I guess it put Whale on steroids, right? And while some people exited, some people remained. A lot of people remained actually from Maiden Voyage. Continue to support the wonderful people who built the mouthpiece for NFT land, like yourselves, like Andrew, like William Peaster. Because I have a lot of respect for you guys. You guys have been doing this for over a year now. When you first entered the space, you guys did it as a labor of love, and you guys didn't expect any compensation or support from it. So really kudos to all of you, man.
Mm-hmm. Just to clarify too, like you have been giving out these whale grants, I think we're about to go on to the 6th month, or we're on month 5, something like that.
No, you're spot on. About to go into the 6th month.
And then it's been so incredible. First of all, just from a pure monetary perspective, to see the appreciation over that short amount of time. Like in the beginning, it was definitely funny money. And
Yep.
when people first come across social currency, especially for a creator or entity that just created their first social currency, it has very, very little value. Obviously, Whale was different from the very beginning because there is this premise, obviously, that your vault is what kind of undergirds that value, right?
Correct.
But still, I mean, there's obviously like the day-to-day trading value of the social currency, which in the very early days was very small comparatively. It was like, okay, I can throw this money around. But the incredible thing for us in particular, I know that you gave it to Rizzle for what he's doing on the Token Smart podcast, and
Yep.
for You Deserve a Drink, which kind of had a weird brand change to the Matthew and Rizzle show. But You Deserve a Drink used to stick. But we were able to take those funds, and the most impactful way for us to use them was with the whip, and not just using it like for the audience as a way to bring in attention for new audience members and attendees, but to build out what has become a whip crew, like a group of 12 people who are contributing, working on this project, obviously part-time right now, but in very, very meaningful ways, like as a legitimate side hustle, and getting paid in Whale, and then having those individuals accrue and amass their Whale holdings and become members within the Whale community, having their own kind of being able to use those funds however they may, and to pay that whole outfit, and to grow the whip into what it's become today, which last week, season finale for season 2, we had over 500 people attend the whip across CryptoVoxels and Discord. Over 500 people.
That is insane. I remember listening to the Token Smart podcast and celebrating along with you guys as you reached 50, as you reached 100, 500. Yep. That is by far the largest meetup in NFT land and in the metaverse by far.
100%. And we're competing with like these quote unquote virtual conferences that spring up like once or twice a year at the moment. Like we're doing this every week, but it's been in no small part due to the generosity and the foresight that you've had with these Whale grants. And I told you before in private, but I just want to double down now. I feel like in the future, when the history books are open and we see what was happening at the beginning of the metaverse, your Whale grants are going to go down as one of the most important milestones in that. And the people that have been collecting it upfront early on, I know they're going to go on to do such big and grand things, and to have that support is just so massive. So a big thank you from me.
No, man, Matt, thank you. I mean, once again, thank you to all of the people, who had the foresight. Once again, I came in late, but really huge late, right? But just a huge thanks to all of you for really not only creating the information, but also creating the culture that we see today in NFT land. Just looking back, I wish I could have told you that. And when I issued those Whale grants, told you guys, hold on, it's going to reach $10. It's going to be $10,000 for each project. Just hold on. But I didn't have that. I've been surprised by the growth of Whale myself, right? I think when we first issued grants, I think they were at the price of Whale was what, 25 cents, 27 cents. Had a liquidity pool of maybe $100,000. Really not that liquid to where we are today, where a single Whale can be worth anywhere between $9 to $11 given the day, and a real liquidity pool of approaching $1.5 million, which means that those grants really come into play now. And hopefully become even bigger in the future.
Going forward into the future, I mean, what is your plan for the grants and the grant program? Is that something that you are going to continue to architect and lead? Is that something that will be like a member of the Whale community has plans and designs for? Like,
so grants will always be a part of the Whale community. After the initial 5 grantees, we've added on another 4. So roughly on a pace of about 1 per month. I think the original Whale grants were meant to reward and to help, as well as enable. many of the NFT land OGs. There are some amazing projects coming out. And but it's really our pleasure to help foster that spirit of innovation and progress with a lot of these new projects as well. Moving forward, the Whale DAO, which was established a month ago, but really only went into effect at the beginning of this month, will determine the next round of grantees. Again, You Deserve a Drink or WHIP, along with TokenSmart, were the only grantees who received the 12-month grant. So we do have some grants being released after this month's payout. And we will, once again, if there's a space, if there's a project with a track record of giving to the community, and of doing things out of passion and not for the money, we'd be more than happy to make those grants. In addition to that, Matthew, I think what you might have heard is we also have a $500,000 VC fund that just got set up. It's called Whale Tank. It's grown from 80,000 to 500,000 over the course of 2 months. For those that are looking for profitability, have a great idea, who are dedicated to their projects, those projects will be able to apply for a Whale Tank grant as well. So really, we split it up. We got whale grants to reward those who, have that real selfless streak to benefit the community, and we have Whale Tank, which acts as our incubator and our venture capital arm.
I mean, just the name Whale Tank obviously associations with Shark Tank. I could imagine in the future on a whip just having a pitch off, with some of the folks that submit their pitches and ideas, to shout them out and to see what the community, how they respond, and perhaps factor that into getting awarded. That's
exactly what we're looking to do. Once again, we're probably not going to be as harsh as Shark Tank. It's not in my nature to put money above all. So we will be a lot more humane. But again, I think we do have to be extremely cognizant of the fact that 99% of the projects might not live beyond 1 or 2 years, and we just got to be extremely smart about who and when we decide to invest in projects.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And at this point, I mean, we touched on it, and you'd mentioned it. Like there is this vault, like the largest, most valuable collection, and I would say one of the dopest collections of not just crypto art but NFTs in the universe.
Thank you.
That's an incredible statement.
Thank you, my friend.
Not a single work or item has been sold off. That's my understanding. Is that correct?
That is correct. Once again, I've personally collected, let me think here. So there's about 4,000 in the vault. There's another 9,000 outside of the vault that will enter the vault. And then there's another, I want to say, so Gods and Chain cards, 200, I want to say 200,000. I gotta go back and check. But out of all of those NFTs that I bought over the course of the last 15 months, I have never sold a single NFT before, ever. And very proud of that fact as well.
Oh, definitely. And it's a really, really interesting point, because in the process, you had Non-Fungibles.com and a few other folks come in and perform an audit on the collection. And I'm just wondering if you could talk about that audit process, like what went into it, some of the trickier parts of the evaluation, and how those tricky items were resolved. I think that'd be interesting to hear.
So I think the inclusion of nonfungible.com as our completely independent and objective auditor for the vault was a necessary one. There's no way that I could have launched Whale and said, hey, I'm going to be the one who's going to evaluate this. It just doesn't make sense, right?
A little off. That was a little funky there.
Just a tiny bit, right? So, what I approached nonfungible.com and said, hey, why don't you audit the vault? I'll make you a chief partner. And once again, I will have no say whatsoever in what you guys decide to evaluate the vault at. You guys, once again, I'd love to see the report before you issue it. But it's not up to me to say yes or no. That is completely in your field. And that's the way that we've continued for the last 4 audits. Basically, what nonfungible.com did was they created an automatic algorithm, as well as with some manual intervention, to be able to look at every single project in the space, and based on past sales, be able to evaluate, how much is this NFT worth. I do know that they partnered with, I believe, Mocha, to be able to get a better valuation on what art pieces are, because again, art pieces are extremely hard to evaluate when you don't have an extensive amount of history in the space. You can evaluate based on an artist, but not every single piece is going to be valued at the same price. I think there's a lot of intricacies there that still need to be built up. What I see from the valuation process right now is that right now the team is using a past sales approach towards the valuation of assets in the vault. Now, when you do that, basically what you're evaluating is you're evaluating past sales probably from the majority of traders, right? Traders or, a handful of investors or long-time holders. Now, I don't think that that is a fully accurate portrayal of the value of an NFT. I think in the future, the value of an NFT really needs to be spread across 3 dimensions. The first thing, they got it nailed down, is previous sales. The second thing that needs to be evaluated is current pricing and current market scarcity, right? So you're evaluating the past, you're evaluating the present. And then after that, what needs to happen is that they need to include some sort of price prediction modeling to understand what it could be worth in the future. So, once again, taking a weighted average of past pricing, current market pricing and scarcity, as well as an element of price prediction. That's really when we'll get to a very mature stage of NFT asset valuation. Hopefully coming soon.
Always coming soon. Trademark.
Hot 2 minutes. 2 hot minutes.
I find that process endlessly fascinating, and it's just, again, so fortunate to be at the very beginning of this process, when everyone is going to be able to have their own opinions and ideas how to influence that auditing and pricing.
Because Matt, I know that you're a large collector of crypto art, and I barely see you release any of your pieces, right? I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to test my thesis early on. So I've divided collectors into developing their thesis, which I think you fall into that bucket, right? Until you sell something off, it's always speculative. And obviously we know that you're going to make money back. And at some point, I'm sure you'll be making way more than you put in. But then for me, it was really important for me, obviously as a smaller collector compared to you, but a collector that's put a non-trivial amount of money into this brand new asset class to make money back and to make a profit. So I've been very, very selective in the pieces that I let go, and always making sure that when they are let go, I'm hitting a certain multiple of my investment. And
you're a savvy investor. I mean, the NFT economy is always going to have short-term traders, midterm collectors, midterm investors, and long-term. So again, I am in awe of your collection. You might be a smaller collector, but I love the collection that I've seen. You also have the original first piece by, I think it's Da Vinci and A Lot of Money, right? That collaboration.
Yeah,
that is an epic piece. That is an epic piece. Oh, I think I think I might have come in on one bid while you were bidding on that.
Luckily, you did not. Right after that,
I did not.
After that is when you kind of swooped in and made the big splash, and I was like, "Thank you for not going in on that." I think Cody was in on this. I know I got into the bid war with Robness towards the end of it, but thank you for missing this one.
That is an amazing piece, by the way, and it will not sell for just multiples. It will sell for many, many multiples. I think as we delve into art as well. The audience coming into crypto art right now are largely from crypto. I think this is a discussion that the community has had before. What is crypto art? But having those beautiful pieces that are not only just beautiful pieces of art, but also have an element of crypto to it. Those are really going to strike chords with the crypto community as a whole.
Yep. And it's part of the whole history that's getting built out, right?
Correct.
There's so much that goes into every piece, but certain pieces just have so much more value for all their associations. I mean, the moments that they were purchased, the environment, like the series of events that kind of they set in motion or were set in motion after that. It's so fascinating. It's a way to write history, I think, to be involved.
Dude,
And as a collector, you have a very small role in that history, but it's a very key
if
role.
you've been here for way longer than I have, but even if you just look at the art market back in November of last year, you really only had two whales, and we were mainly bidding in super rare, and
Yeah.
after that, Maker's Place. I mean,
Mhm.
it was Moderats and myself.
Yep.
If I look at any one of those three platforms, Maker's Place, Known Origin, or Super Rare today, you number one, you also see the inclusion of new platforms like Nifty Gateway.
Hmm.
Um,
Async.
but you async, yep, absolutely. You got whales left, right, and center now,
Yes.
which is insane.
No, absolutely. And the one thing that the space needed is that a more built out collector base. I
Hmm.
mean,
Hmm.
it was very shallow. It is still somewhat shallow. I mean, we
Hmm.
always need more collectors. So there's
Hmm.
no denying that. Nifty
Yep.
Gateway, I think, has been instrumental, or it played a key role in helping build out a more diverse collector base. And one of the things that I talked with, like, for example, Josie about,
Hmm.
and one of her decisions to branch out from her own storefront on OpenSea to a place like Nifty Gateway was the ability to connect with a brand new collector base that
Hmm.
isn't necessarily crypto first, but they're coming in and getting exposure just because of positive associations Nifty Gateway has with Gemini and all that, like, and just more approachable with the credit card sales and everything like that.
Oh no, I just want to chime in and just say that there are a lot of artists that are coming into the space. There's tons of well-known artists that actually want to enter the space, and surprisingly enough, I love the Nifty Gateway guys, but their number one. A lot of these artists, these famous artists, their number one choice for dropping is Nifty Gateway.
Yeah.
They asked me, hey, how can I get in touch with Duncan and Griffin? um,
Yeah.
More than happy to make those recommendations, as it just brings more quality content into the space. But I think as we move forward, we're going to see more digital galleries. We are going to see more collectors. We are going to see more artists coming into the space, and this is really just the tip of the iceberg.
100%. And I mean, when we're talking about these different marketplaces, and this is a conversation that I had wanted to have since I had seen it unfold in Discord maybe a month or so ago. With crypto time, it's always a little bit hard to judge. It wasn't last week. I'm sure of that. But there was a few moments when you had kind of publicly announced. I think Known Origin was the first one where you had stated that
Hmm.
you would no longer be purchasing
Correct.
work from that platform. And then I'm not sure how long after that, but then there was an announcement from you about Super Rare and deciding not to purchase work from there. We don't have to go into the full background of why, because I feel like that's been hashed out elsewhere and we don't need to
Yes, it
mention it.
has. Yep.
But the question that I'd wanted to bring up was that obviously within the vault, like a non-trivial number of the crypto art works in your possession come from Super Rare in particular.
Hmm. Yep.
And obviously the Whale project is a community in name, proper name, and then obviously in function. And there's a lot of members of that community now. And that decision at the time, it seemed very, very unilateral. Obviously, you're the creator and you have that decision-making ability. But I'm curious, like, what went into it, and then, like, afterwards, if you could go back in time and in the future, if you're confronted with a similar decision, would you make that same unilateral decision, or is that something heading forward that, like, is something that the community would have to or be privy to helping inform such a decision?
That's a wonderful question, Matt. And I'm not going to go into the background on that, but what I can say is that again, there was a difference in values and principles, and that were not monetary, right? I believe I should be the largest collector on known origin, as well as I'm definitively the largest collector on super rare in terms of dollar value. There was a difference in values. There was a difference in community values and principles that I saw that I just couldn't step away from. And being someone who puts values and principles over profitability, it was a decision that I had to make as an individual then. Now, right now, the vault is being funded purely by, all of the additions that you see from the vault are being funded purely from my own crypto stash at the moment. At the end of the day, what I want to see is, that funding comes from the sale, as well as the revenue generation of assets in the vault. At that point in time, where to collect, when to collect, how to collect, what to collect, will really all be done by the Whale DAO. It'll all be done by the Whale DAO. One of the things that I've struggled with as a founder of Whale, is again, I lose a tiny bit of autonomy as an individual because I'm so closely tied to the project itself, right? My values and my principles might not reflect those of the greater community, while we usually are 99% aligned. And really, that announcement, you're asking a very fair question, because after that, I did have to field some questions from the Whale community. Received a lot of support for that decision. Would I do it again? Absolutely. But I would have done it in a different way, right? I think at some point in time, back then the Whale DAO wasn't active as of yet. But moving forward, the decisions of where and when and how to collect, number one, will take place when the Whale community becomes a self-sufficient revenue generation entity. And then after that, number two, it'll purely be done through the Whale DAO. The other last point I want to bring up, Matt, pertaining to this, is that the barrier to entry for creating an art gallery is so low. I think you and I have seen how many. It used to be only three, right? It used to be three, four, maybe, right? If you count some of the smaller ones. I think there are maybe about 15 to 20 platforms today. And the artists that post on these platforms, they're usually cross-platform. 3 at a minimum, 5 or 6 if they're prolific. So really, those decisions that I made didn't really affect the quality of art that I continue to invest in and give to the Whale community through the vault. I think as you brought up Josie. Josie is an amazing artist. Love her work. Wish I had more, but extremely hard to get. Dude, it's so hard to get a Josie.
Yeah.
But artists like her enjoy creating their own storefront. I applaud artists for doing that, and I think we're going to see a lot of that more in the future. So yeah, I think it's it was really sad for me because I had a very good professional and personal relationship with both of those platforms. It was a difference in values and principles that I'm sorry I don't compromise on, but I do wish them the best. And moving forward, who knows what holds in the future. Would love to see some of those actions that were promised during that time take place. Haven't seen it yet. Have they been activated already? Community guidelines and stuff like that?
Right after that kerfuffle emerged, they published a new terms of community. So as far as I know, that is in place, and it's a work in progress how they're going to incorporate that. But it's really, I commented within the Discord after this happened, and seeing them take that stance. I mean, from a community management perspective, it's pretty revolutionary, because a lot of what will happen, or like the core element of that, is it's not just what happens or takes place within their channels. It's what happens across other channels, and that is something that no project, as far as I know, that has a community has implemented. So it's a great experiment.
Do you know what the ultimate solution is, though? And it's inevitable that this is going to happen for almost every single decentralized platform.
Give it to me. What is it?
It's tokenization of governance, man. It's
uh, uh, uh.
definitely tokenization of governance. I mean, you've seen it with, you've seen it with that platform who I will not name. Um, in my opinion, poorly done.
Invisible shots fired.
Invisible shots fired, invisible bullet, invisible missile. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
you've seen it happening, and really honestly, when the entry barriers to this sort of activity is so low, the only way that you can continue to succeed is if you foster loyalty among your collector and creator base, right? The best way to be able to do that is give your major collectors, or give all of your collectors and give all of your creators a voice in the governance and the profitability, right? When you see platforms start to do that, then you're going to see stickiness. I think it's inevitable that you will see every single decentralized, whether that's crypto art platform, whether that's crypto game platform, move to some sort of tokenized governments, as well as, if possible, tokenized profit sharing, whereby you'll really be able to tie your collectors, your creators, and everybody into the project for the long term.
Yep. No, I totally agree. And that also provides an answer to the folks that are saying, well, if people are getting kicked, if certain artists, certain renegade artist types are getting kicked off of a particular marketplace, where can they go? What can they do? Like, they can just spin up their own community if they want to, or marketplace. Like you mentioned, the barrier to entry is so small, but this is the key part that a lot of people miss in community curation and community growth and development, is that the early community and the seeds within that early community are absolutely pivotal for its long-term success. If you're not weeding out elements that don't align with your values, that are unsavory, you're going to have a spoiled field of a community heading forward, and it's going to be rotten. But you can be idealistic and think that that's not the case and come with open arms for everyone and have no barriers there. But I've not seen a community succeed long term that approaches it from that perspective. And I feel like it's a really important, it's a tough discussion, and it's always going to be divisive because we're talking about values that may be shared and may not be shared. But because crypto and the tools available to us provide such a low barrier to spinning up our own communities and marketplaces and whatnot, these are experiments that we'll see play out. But I mean, I have certain hypotheses on how certain communities will work or not work, that you may share with me. But I feel like that's a really important point to also make in this discussion.
I mean, couple of, two sayings, right? You can't be everything to everyone, right? There is no everything to everyone crypto platform, except for OpenSea, right? OpenSea is awesome. And then number two, saying from my literature professor, sit on the fence and you prick your balls, right? So I think that's something that we all have to understand, right? Don't sit on the fence. And just the last point, in terms of the barrier to entry, I think the whale community has already proven it, right? What we did something called whale NFT mining, where we established a pot of 2,000 whale that were distributed to whale artists who were curated. At the end of the month, we divide that 2,000 whale up by the percentage of sales that each artist make. And then after that, they also get all of the sales of all of their art in whale that they sell for whale. Completely sold out in September. I think it was about 143 ETH. Then after that, in October, we just released Ikaitsa's piece, sold out within 4 minutes, right? Anyone with access to artwork, who knows a tiny bit about how to create a smart contract as well as mint so that people can see it on OpenSea, how to create a storefront on OpenSea, can become an art gallery, right? The barrier to entry is just way too low.
I just want to flag what you're talking about too, like spinning up your own smart contract, crypto. Like, these things sound very technical, but they're great examples of no code tools that everyone has at their disposal. And the experiment that you're talking about with like this whale fund and funding artists and whatever funds come in, like distributing that equally amongst, like, based on the sales to the artists and community members, blah, blah, blah. Like these are no code experiments that everyone can run, and people can come up with their own experiments. And there's no better place to try these no code experiments. I mean, the barrier is so low. All you need is an idea, come up, throw it out to any community, spin up your own community. This is the future. Like, we are just early days in trying to show people what's possible, and it's just so exciting. We can't do enough of this.
Dude, if a millennial who acts like a boomer can do it, anyone can, right? And that's the first thing. And then the second thing, I mean, take a look at Whip. I mean, whenever you guys promote a single digital wearable project, I know the sneakers and whatnot, dude, it's a hustle to get even one, right? I tried once. My fingers are not fast enough. Can probably never do it again. But you're absolutely right. As long as you have a community, a solid community with aligned values, aligned visions, and you have great products, the community store is the store of the future, right?
100%, absolutely. And well, looking forward and coming to the end of this discussion, I'm just curious. Like, what's next, and what does the space need heading forward?
So I think what's next is really the maturing. So as an industry as a whole, what I'm seeing is the maturing of the industry, right? The maturing of everything within the NFT industry. I think, again, all of us were very lucky to be here, at the beginning or quote unquote early, right? But the last 1 month in NFT land has probably been the most exciting. It's probably been the most exciting time in NFT land that I've seen in the last 15 months. I'm literally on a call with institutional investors or larger investors who are looking to enter into the space every day, at least one or two a day. On top of that, you're seeing the buzz and people moving from DeFi coming into the space. You see artists, really famous artists actually, coming into the space as well, looking for advice. Where do I get on board? How do I do this? Can you have me, dude? I and you and I got to talk at some point in time, but I have had so many requests to introduce platforms and projects to you for Spotlight. You would not believe it. So I will drop you all of those contacts in a tiny bit. But I think you're going to see a huge increase in the number of people within the space, as well as the increase in the amount of money in the space. To really take it to, number one, maturity, and then number two, take it to a mass market, right? You brought up Nifty Gateway, who, with credit card payments are really expanding it to the mass market. You see NBA Top Shots and what they're doing. Again, their core target isn't the crypto market. It's real collectors who don't have an exposure to crypto. Terra Virtua is another one, right? They're creating 3D collectibles. Again, with blockchain in the back, and the user experience in front. This is, Matt, I think this is just the beginning, man. This is really just the beginning, and I don't see this momentum slowing down. However, what I do see is that this boom in NFT land is not going to be the same as a boom in cryptocurrency or DeFi, simply because NFTs are non-fungible. Just because you own an NFT doesn't mean you're going to benefit from the boom, because some NFTs will go up and some NFTs will go down, right? Or will stagnate. So it's going to be very interesting. I've tweeted this a couple of times already, but I think with this new moon or boom in NFT land, you're going to see tastemakers and you're going to see loss makers. Just be smart about, just to the audience, just be smart about your investments. If what you're looking for is a monetary return.
Mm-hmm. NFT land is really interesting. There's all this interest that is coming in, and you're right. I mean, I feel like every month is the most interesting month in NFT land, but this most recent month, or we're still technically in it, is by far the most exciting, and you can see the floodgates have opened to a large extent for folks coming in from DeFi, like you mentioned. Definitely outsiders paying attention and seeing some of the larger sales that are happening and hopping in. And then obviously, and most excitingly, the creators that are really getting excited about this coming in. And then the collectors and investors seeing that and coming in. It's just the virtuous loops are just compounding at this point. And
Matt, well, a question for you, right?
Shoot.
So NFT land is going to moon because you get more collectors and creators. How do you, so once again, making that comparison towards crypto and DeFi, how do you bust NFT land if everything is not homogeneous?
Well, that's what I was getting to. It's not like there is a boom in NFT land. It's like there's multiple explosions happening across these individual communities, right?
Yep.
Each project is its own community, and each artist, it's essentially their own community too. So while you're seeing an inflow of capital, generally broadly into the space, you're just going to have these booms in certain creators. You're going to and projects, and there's going to be a leveling off. There's going to be a cooling off phase. But what happens with collectibles? It's this recursive series of booms and cooldowns, right? And it's just kind of understanding what projects have the ability to provide long-lasting value, which artists are really into and really have a passionate base of collectors that have strong hands that are not going to like cut out and drop the floor out on a particular artist. It's all these variables that one then needs to tune into in these respective projects and communities to see where the real value is over time, right? But in the interim, there's going to be like talking heads that come up and purport to be like know-it-alls in the space, and will try to shill projects for short-term value that they'll strip away from the communities, and it'll drop out. And you'll just see I feel like we're at the very beginning of this, what's going to continually evolve in this sort of like boom, cool off, and some sort of like scam that'll come into the space just because of how easy it is to create a project that seems to be viable only to have the floor drop out.
Yeah. But really, this is, Matt, I mean, just to my last comment on this, I mean, if you compare the boom in NFT to the boom in crypto and the boom in DeFi, and I've said this a couple of times already, but crypto was the revolution for better money. DeFi is the revolution for better financial services. NFT is not a better revolution; it's a necessary revolution, right? It answers a problem that the world has today. If you look at it from a trend perspective, what you have is you have a world moving to a digital lifestyle, right? We can't travel anymore, so we live on our computers. Our lives are on our computers. We have a shrinking physical space. So auction houses are having problems, pitching traditional art to younger buyers because they don't have anywhere to put it up. At the same time, even if I just look at my hotel room that I'm in right now, I'm looking at a computer. I have a secondary portable monitor. I got my cell phone next to me. I have my tablet next to my portable monitor, and I got a TV above those 4 screens, right? The screen is the new canvas. The screen is the new lifestyle canvas, right? If screens are what everyone is looking at right now, then digital art really has to be the next outlet for commercial art. And tying this back to NFTs, if I ask you again, it's become a famous question, but is there any other way besides NFT technology to prove the scarcity and provenance of a digital art piece? And usually the answer is no. Then this has to work, not even for the short term, but for the longer term as well.
100%. And to take that even further, I mean, in the history, there's no more blue ocean for pioneers to expand to on planet Earth. I guess you could go literally in the ocean and try to set up like new places for folks and communities to spring up. But for the most part, like all the opportunities in the physical planet have been more or less exhausted. if you want to have another America spring up, and or if China or any other country really wants to kind of just take over, and you want people flying all over the place and trying to build up all these other, it's kind of, we're at this point of diminishing returns where the more people do that, the worse it is for the earth and everyone else here. But the potential for growth and success on the digital realm, on the internet, in the quote unquote metaverse, it's unbounded. And if people do believe that in the far future, like it seems like folks like Elon Musk believe, that, okay, well, eventually we're going to leave Earth and go somewhere else, that the natural way that that happens is for folks to have the ability to make money, to live in a digital setting that's totally unbounded, essentially, from Earth. It's not reliant on the physical for what's happening, for prosperity, for development, for creation, right? And you have this metaverse that it could live anywhere. It could live within the telecommunication structure of Earth, or anywhere that an internet signal can travel, which, as far as I know, is like anywhere in the universe.
Unlimited.
Right?
Yep. Dude,
so
fully
I mean,
agreed.
that's a crazy conversation, but
I mean, Pomp sent out a tweet when he entered into crypto art, and just from an investor standpoint, he mentioned that in order to make money, there are two ways. Number one, you either enter a space extremely early, or number two, you enter a space whereby people have given up on the value proposition that is still actually very valid, but is being underlooked. You see all these people coming into crypto art at the moment, but then when you realize that all of this crypto art is digital based, you're going to need to have a place to display it and to share it and to highlight it. And that is the metaverse, right? If you're a savvy investor, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be looking at the value chain. It's the number one thing that I do, and I apologize I didn't bring it up earlier. But before I invest in anything, I spend a good 2 to 3 hours, listing out what the value chain looks like. What's closest to source and what's furthest away from source. And then after that, looking at every single opportunity and saying, hey, is it worth it to go into this element or not? Immediately after crypto art, it has to be the metaverse. Because you're going to need to have some place to display your art, to display your collectibles. I think you guys have it spot on, especially with WIP being fully in the metaverse itself. You not only benefit from that logistics advantage whereby you don't need to physically travel anywhere, but at the same time, you can show people things that you might not be able to show them with a webcam, right?
100%. And you're able to create experiences for people. And that's part of the secret sauce that people need to just experience, right? It's tautological to say, but and CryptoVoxels is magical in the sense that at this point, all you need is a URL to click in to go to one of these events. And when there is a drop in particular, and you have the opportunity, like in the case of what happened with No Shot or Syncos, they had these purely digital wearables that were limited and scarce, that people could vie and try to outbid one another to own. And once they own it, it's theirs. But buying that, bidding for those digital objects in this virtual meetup, like it assigns a significance to a digital object that I don't think most people would assume is possible. So that when you are at a future virtual meetup and you're wearing those virtual kicks that you bought, and you come across, or the avatar that you were bidding against sees you wearing them, it creates this really funny ripple effect of other experiences and getting called out and kind of like having this like back and forth banter. It's just one small example of these experiences that can happen in this purely virtual digital context that live on and that you can see. And it just, this persistence is this really interesting effect. Even though it's very early and there's so many rough edges, we're at the very beginning of being able to build out this incredible backdrop and this incredible world for virtual and digital experiences that by themselves are just so valuable and so powerful.
Your whip with Machi X and the drop on the
Yeah,
comic
yeah.
books, that really blew my mind, by the way. Being able to walk through a comic book
That was so
rather than
cool.
just read it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was insane, dude. That was insane. That was I looked at this, I was like, this is the future of comic books, right? And at the end of the day, you talk about websites selling art, and this is another teaser that I'm going to drop here. But you think about all these platforms, whether or not you use OpenSea or whether or not you use one of these curated platforms, you're still collecting digital art in a 2D environment, right, on a website. When is someone going to skip that 2D experience and just have a pure play metaverse art gallery whereby you can buy art and sell art in the metaverse itself and skip that entire website experience altogether, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you saw this I think it was 3 weeks ago at this point. Sky Golpe, in conjunction, I think with Mocha, they had a gallery viewing in Somnium Space. And I mean, Somnium Space, for folks that have the headset and can properly go in and view Somnium Space in its full glory, I felt like there is a future where that's going to happen, and someplace like that, like a Somnium Space, could be poised to be that gallery experience, purely virtual, that skips the 2D curated marketplaces and just goes into that. Because the gallery that they had constructed, which I forget the woman's name who designed it, but she comes from an architect background, and she considered like the lighting and the time of day and how it would be viewed, and when the gallery opening would occur, and all those minute details that you look for in great architecture and great buildings, and coupled with I'm a big fan of Sky Gope, and their work being displayed there, and it's like, that is where I would want to experience it, and that is where I'd really, really want to purchase it. And it's actually possible, but it's just not widely accessible at this point. And I feel like it's a little bit too much too soon, although it's a great experiment to run. Crypto Voxels is definitely at the forefront of making the accessibility paramount. But to kind of, if we're just going to stay on this point for a little while, I'd love to talk a little bit about your expectations with the sandbox, because for me, I think the sandbox is going to be that next level up when it comes to like the early days of accessible blockchain based VR. We have Decentraland, and kudos to them and their team for doing their thing. But I feel like there's a lot of experiments being run there, and it sort of dilutes the whole value add to me. From just a user and investor perspective. But the sandbox, focusing on the game aspect, which at the WIT, we've experimented with like post-event games at a very rudimentary basic level, but it is effing fun to have a group of people in the same space as you engage in a game together. And as soon as the sandbox is ready to launch, I want to be there with the WIP fam, experiencing those games. But I'm curious, since you're, like, as far as I know, one of the biggest, if not the biggest single investor in the sandbox, like, what are your expectations with that project? Where do you think it's going?
Gotcha. So I guess to preface my comments, I think that firstly, the metaverse is not going to be a winner takes all, right? What we're going to see is, I've always thought this way, is you're going to see different platforms be good for different things. I think we're starting to see a blurring of the lines, but at the end of the day, you're really going to have each platform with its own unique strengths. We talked about Crypto Voxels, wonderful place to display art, digital art, and once again, still the number one choice among artists when they want to set up a digital gallery. With DCL, really, I see it more as a social environment. So I tend to be a bigger fan of voxels, but DCL does have that very strong community and strong social element to it. I think you hit the nail on the head with Sandbox. Sandbox is really about the game, and what I love about Sandbox is they're building the Sandbox off of many other years of success on game creating platforms that were not crypto based, right? So this is an extension and an evolution of an already successful project. Seb and the team, they work tirelessly. I don't think I ever go through a single day without seeing Seb being on some podcast, right?
Sometimes multiple podcasts at once or multiple YouTube lives. It's that man. I don't know. I don't think he sleeps.
I don't think so either. And every single one, he puts his heart and soul into it. He records a message in that native language. That team is just spectacular, right? My expectations for the sandbox are extremely high. They're an extremely professional team, an already established team. I do follow their weekly stream, whereby they show everybody what's coming up, what's going on, how to use this, how to use that, and I love it. Right, the mechanics and the economics of the game, as well as the builder, it just looks tremendous to me. One of the things that as a community we brought up to them in the beginning was, hey, we know that you're doing a game. But if NFTs aren't interoperable into the sandbox platform, then we think that you are missing a large piece of something that you could be capturing here, right? I think Sandbox will be known for two things. Actually, they'll be known for three things in the following priority. The first thing that they're going to be known for is their bread and butter, which is games, right? So people are going to get on there, build games, and I think you're going to see some prominent game studios being based straight out of the sandbox. So that's the first one. The second one is that he did show us some interoperability features a couple of months ago. So you're actually going to be able to display your crypto art in sandbox as well. Again, I think it's going to be a little bit different from CryptoVoxels, given the ease of use of CryptoVoxels, like you said, just one link. I think that some artists and these plots are huge, right? One land is ginormous. It's like 3 or 4 Frankfurt plots. So I think you're going to see them also get a little bit of the crypto art pie. And then after that, the third thing is that, hey, when you have content, so when you have games and when you have the ability to display NFTs, the social element will just flow straight in, right? So I think the social element is a result of doing the first two things well. High expectations, man. We used to be the highest holder of land for the sandbox. Recently got ousted by Binance. So we're number 2 now. Unfortunately, I cannot. While I would love to, I don't think I have the resources to compete with Binance at this stage. But I can also tell you that we own about 30% of the liquidity pool for Sand, which is amazing, because as a whale community, what we're going to do is we're not going to be passive landholders. We're going to create something called whale builders. And what we're going to do is we have enough land, we're mining all the sand right now, and then after that, we just have to incentivize the community to build some stellar games on that platform.
There we go.
Right?
It all comes back to the community and pushing forward the changes and developments and incentivizing just the positive construction of this. It's more of like a multiverse. To your point, it's not going to be winner take all, but it's definitely going to be community driven at the end of the day, and that's kind of beautiful. And I mean, we've talked a lot. I'm so thankful for you to take your time to dive into these insanely interesting topics with me. Before we go, I just want to make sure that we hit everything that you wanted to talk about and ask you, is there anything that you wanted to talk about more? And then if there's anything you want to shout out, I feel like this is a great opportunity to do that.
No, dude, again, Matt, this has really been a dream come true for me and really coming full circle. I know that you and I talk on a weekly basis, but this is really the first time that you and I got to do this one-on-one. I know that we were also people were thinking that WhaleShark was Matthew and Matthew was WhaleShark in the beginning.
Early conspiracy theory, yes.
Yeah, I think they can now tell that you and I, while we share many of the same values, are two very different people. So really, just being being the first podcast that I ever listened to in NFT land, and having the honor and the pleasure to be able to speak with you one-on-one. This is really a dream come true for me. I guess my shout out to the community would be, have strong hands. Make sure that you guys are smart about investing in NFTs. We have some very positive communities like Whip or Whale in NFT land. Welcome everyone to join these communities, to learn more, to make friends, to collect some awesome NFTs. From my perspective, from a Whale perspective, we're really excited to be an integral part of the space. For those who do want to find us, you can either hit me up on my Twitter, which is whaleshark.pro, or you guys can actually join our Whale Discord, which is discord.gg/whale. I just look forward to all of the wonderful things that are happening in the space, and seeing all the wonderful people who made this happen get very well rewarded.
There you go. Well, thank you once again for taking the time to speak with me. You're an absolute gentleman and a scholar, and so exciting to listen to all your plans that you have and everything you're cooking up, and can't wait to see everything as it blooms and blossoms heading forward. So keep doing your thing, brother.
It's my pleasure, man. And you guys keep charging on.
Will do. Thank you, man. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Thanks.
Hey again, this is Matthew. Thank you all for listening to this week's episode. And just want to give one more shout out to this month's sponsor, Connie Digital. Make sure that you follow him and go check out his latest updates at danky.art. And definitely, if you're not already signed up, make sure you join his email newsletter by going to conniedigital.com/join and filling in your email address and ETH address. That's conniedigital.com/join to join Connie Digital's email newsletter. Thank you all, and see you on the next episode.
Podcast. 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 Podcast.